guys, so new background today. We just painted our dining room and I love it. I love how bright it is, so I kind of want it to be my background now. And I got a couple of extra lights. I have a microphone, which hopefully it's still on and recording. But yeah, so I thought I would just kind of fancy up my filming setup. But today's video is going to be about me as a RN telling patients that I have Crohn's disease, I have an ostomy, I have done tube feeding. Because there is a certain point at which I tell them, and then there are points at which I don't tell them that I've had all of this. So I'm gonna discuss that a little bit and then tell you kind of how I tell them. Some of you guys know that I work on a GI unit. I've been a nurse there for a little bit over a year, and we see a lot of different kids. I don't just take care of ostomy kids. I take care of short gut, TPN dependent, pseudo obstruction. We have a lot of liver kids, so a lot of liver transplants. We get endocrine kids, so I see a lot of diabetics, which I just got oriented to that side of our unit, which is pretty new to me, but I am starting to take care of them, and HI kids, and we get a lot of metabolic kids as well. So I see an array of patients. It's not just the Crohn's and colitis kids. I wish there was a unit just for them, but there isn't. They're my favorite patients to take care of, but I see a little bit of everything. I do often get tube feedings and ostomies and Crohn's though, so I have enough kind of background of talking to patients, both as a nurse and then outside of the hospital, talking to them about their disease. Now, I would absolutely love to tell everybody and anybody who will listen that I have Crohn's and I have an ostomy and yada da da. You guys know I'm pretty open about it. Every nurse on the floor knows that I in fact have Crohn's and I have an ostomy, and a lot of my closer nursing friends on the floor will call me up and say, hey, I have this patient with a new ostomy, would you mind going in there and talking to him? And I love doing that too. So I talk to patients that are not even my patient that day. But I definitely have a line that I like to stick with about whether or not I tell them that I've gone through all of this. So because I work in a children's hospital, we see a lot of new diagnoses. Kids that come in with, rectal bleeding, diarrhea, weight loss, all of that, and they get diagnosed with IBD. And in those situations where I have the patient brand new, new diagnosis, learning what Crohn's and ulcerative colitis mean. They're getting all of this teaching about what the diseases could lead to, whether it be surgery, ostomies, tube feeds, whatever. And in those situations, I kind of keep my mouth shut. I don't like to tell them that I have Crohn's disease and all the things that have happened to me, because it's one thing to hear it and read it in a packet of information saying, oh, you could eventually get resections. It's one thing to see it there and hear it, from whoever's teaching them, but to have somebody come in their room and be like, I'm a real life situation of that. It does actually happen. I think that it could be very overwhelming and scary, and I don't want to scare anybody, because I know that all the things that I've done, all the procedures I've been to, were a lot on, a 16-year-old. I can't imagine an 8-year-old going through this, and the parents, what they're thinking too, like this is gonna be the rest of their lives. So I kind of keep my mouth shut. It really depends on the situation though. I have told a couple of brand new diagnoses that I also have the disease, because it's been situations where they come back from the colonoscopy, the parents are just so upset, they're like miserable, crying, and they're looking at me like, I don't know what we're gonna do. Like, my kid has this disease, what are we gonna do? And I don't tell them my full story, but I say, listen, I know it's really difficult, but I have Crohn's disease. I've had it for 12 something years now, and I was able to overcome, some of the battles with, what can happen. And I'm living well. I'm your nurse today. I'm able to be a nurse even though I have Crohn's disease. So I'll tell in that situation, but I won't tell my full life story of IBD because it's too much at that moment in time. When it comes to ostomies, it really depends also the situation. Sometimes I can see kids that are really, really sick and I kind of know where it's going. I know that they're gonna recommend a colectomy or even just like a colon rest where they disconnect and give you an ostomy. And I don't bring up the fact that I have one then. I'll wait until they confirm that they're gonna do surgery. And then when parents find out that they're gonna have to go through this surgery in a couple of days and they're terrified for their kid, and the kid's terrified depending on the age, I will go in after they find out and I say, hey, I know this is really overwhelming right now and you probably have a lot of questions. I'm a really good resource because I've been living with an ostomy for 8 years now. And you know, you guys didn't even know that I had one and I've been being your nurse all day with one. So if you guys have any questions, just give me a call and we can chat for a few minutes. And that's really how I approach that situation. And a lot of the parents are just like, wait, hold on, you have one? We have so many questions. And then I sit down with them and we'll talk about, you know, what it's like living with one, what it's like going to school with one. You know, depending on the kid's age, do you think they'll be able to change the bag? You know, stuff like that. You know, all the typical questions that I get on YouTube, parents have too. So we'll go through that and answer some of their questions. And I always let them know the days that I'm working. I say, if I'm working on a Tuesday and that's the day I'm with them, I say, oh, well, I'm gonna be back on Thursday during the day. If you guys have any more questions, my name is Maggie, and just let your nurse know, and you know, if I'm able to stop by, I can stop by. I try and offer myself as much as possible because we have a few different nurses with Crohn's disease, but I think I'm the only one with an ostomy. So I try and just give some patient perspective of what it's gonna be like to have one. With tube feeding, any kid that gets tube feeding, you know, it's so common on our floor for so many different things. I don't tell everybody, but if it's a kid that usually teenagers or like preteen age, really struggling with the idea of having an NG tube placed, I'll talk to them then. And I've even helped a few other nurses kind of coach their kids through their first NG placement. So, you know, I'll just sit by and explain exactly what it's gonna feel like because I know exactly what the tube going down your throat feels like. I tell them, you know, it's gonna take a few hours for your throat to get used to it, but you will get used to it. You might not believe me, but you will. And I just talk them through it. I love doing that. It's one of my favorite things to do at work. I love coaching kids through all this stuff, but I tell, you know, just the kids that are really having a difficult time with NG tubes, I'll talk to them. But because it's so common on our floor, I mean, everybody's walking around with an NG tube. You know, I don't talk to every patient that I have. I just talk to the ones that are really struggling with it. Some of the babies and stuff, the parents just, they pick it up and it's not an issue. It's just really the teenagers that, you know, just the physical appearance of it as well as the feeling of it. Having to have one in it's not fun, but you definitely get used to it. It's like riding a bike. Once you've done it a few times, you do it the rest of your life and you're fine. That's why I was able to place one on myself years after the fact. Even though I don't have to do NG feeds anymore, I was able to place one just because it's like riding a bike. So that's kind of when and how I decide to tell patients, and more specifically their parents, about my disease. I find that I probably talk to parents more than I talk to the kid. If I have a teenager that's going through all of this, you know, whatever, Crohn's, ostomy, feeds, I'll talk to them and their parents. But with the younger kids, we get a lot of very early onset IBD kids. I talk to them because they're the ones that are most overwhelmed because their kid has this disease that's, you know, usually, I mean, the disease is popping up earlier and earlier. It used to be like when you were in your 30s, this would appear, and now kids are getting it younger and younger. I was diagnosed at 11, was having symptoms since I was like 8. So it's like extra overwhelming, you know. Their kid has this disease that wouldn't normally appear for a few more years. So I talk to those parents a lot, and I really do. I talk to parents more than I talk to kids, even though the kids are my patients. Because kids don't fully understand what is going on. Most of the time they don't fully understand what's going on, but the parents do. So that's why I talk to them more. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this video and my beautiful lighting and background and microphone. Hopefully it sounds okay. I'm hoping that it's not dead. It has its own battery and I don't trust it. Alright guys, I will see you guys later. Bye.